There's blood in the shoe. The shoe is too tight, the bride is not right. Then he looked at her foot and saw how the blood was running from it. He turned his horse around and took the false bride home again, saying that she was not the right one and that the other sisters should try on the shoe. She went into her bedroom and got her toes into the shoe all right, but her heel was too large. Then her mother gave her a knife and said, "Cut a piece of your heel. When you are queen, you will no longer have to go on foot." The girl cut a piece of her heel, forced her foot into the shoe, swallowed the pain, and went out to the prince. He took her on his horse as his bride and rode away with her. When they passed the hazel tree, the two pigeons were sitting in it, and they cried out, "Rookie-doo-goo, rookie-doo-goo, there's blood in the shoe. The shoe is too tight, the bride is not right." He looked down at her foot and saw how the blood was running out of her shoe and how it had stained her white stocking all red. Then he turned his horse around and took the false bride home again. "This is not the right one either," he said. "Don't you have another daughter?" "No," said the man. "There is only a deformed little Cinderella from my first wife, but she cannot possibly be the bride." The prince told them to send her to him, but the mother answered, "Oh no, she is much too dirty, she cannot be seen." But the prince insisted on it, and they had to call Cinderella. She first washed her hands and face clean, and then went and bowed down before the prince, who gave her the golden shoe. She sat down on a stool, put her foot out of the heavy wooden shoe, and put it into the slipper, and it fitted her perfectly. When she stood up, the prince looked into her face, and he recognized the beautiful girl who had danced with him. He cried out, "She is my true bride." The stepmother and the two sisters were horrified and turned pale with anger. The prince, however, took Cinderella onto his horse and rode away with her. As they passed by the hazel tree, the two pigeons cried out, "Rookie-doo-goo, rookie-doo-goo, no blood's in the shoe. The shoe's not too tight, the bride is right." After they had cried this out, they both flew down and lit on Cinderella's shoulders, one on the right and the other on the left, and remained sitting there. When the wedding with the prince was to be held, the two false sisters came, wanting to gain favor with Cinderella and to share her good fortune. When the bridal couple walked into the church, the older sisters walked on their right side and the younger on their left side, and the pigeons pecked out one eye from each of them. Afterwards, as they came out of the church, the older one was on the left side and the younger one was on the right side, and then the pigeons pecked out the other eye from each of them. And thus for their wickedness and falsehood, they were punished with blindness as long as they lived. So that's the end of the story. I'm going to give you each a copy of the story. We're going to look at the words that I thought would be difficult for you to understand. The first one is going to be pierce. Does anybody know what this means? No. Well, this word, and if we're going to look at the text, means having or showing a dutiful spirit or regard for God, or an earnest wish to fulfill religious obligations. This is a person who is really dedicated to God in her life. And if we look at the example sentence in the story, it says, "A rich man's wife became sick, and then she felt," oh no, that's not it. "Dear child, remain peace and good, and then our dear God will always protect you." Here we can see how she's referring to God and for her to be good. The next word is going to be wept. Does anybody know what wept means? No? Wet.
Like ashore or something.
Ashore?
Like doing ashore
Yes.
Okay.
Wet is the past participle of weep. And weep means to shed tears. So yeah, it's crying. The next word is smock. Let's read the sentence. Juana, can you read the sentence for me?
Dressed her in an old gray smock and gave her wooden shoes.
Smock is a loose, lightweight overgarment worn to protect the clothing while working. I think it's just like something that servants use. It's just like something to cover up your dress for when you're doing the chores. But she used it every day. This was her clothing. The next word is going to be decked. Vanya, can you read the sentence for me, please?
Yes. How decked out she is.
Can you read from the beginning of the paragraph, please?
Of the paragraph,
Yeah.
they took her beautiful clothes away from her, dressed her in an old gray smock, and gave her wooden shoes. Just look at the proud princess, how decked out she is. They shouted and laughed as they led her into the kitchen.
Decked means dressed in a very fancy way. But from this paragraph, we can see that they are making fun of her. And decked is you. Yeah, it's sarcasm. That's why it says that she's decked out. Okay, now we're gonna look at weary. Marlene, can you read the sentence, please, of weary?
From in the beginning.
No, just the sentence.
In the evening, when she had worked herself weary, there was no bed for her.
Can you relate it? Think of something that it made me? No? Weary means exhausted in strength, endurance, vigor, or freshness. This means that she was really tired. She worked a lot every day and she was weary. The next word is embroidered.
What is that word?
It's circled in the story.
No, it isn't.
It's on the next page.
The third page.
The third page.
Okay.
Diana, can you read it?
Then the bird threw a golden silver dress down to her, and slippers embroidered with silk and silver.
Like over.
Does the word sound like when I was looking it up?
Is it when you?
Yes, el bordado.
Yes.
That's what it means. It's ornamented or with or formatted by decorative needlework. That's what it means. There, I also circled another two words, which was hazel tree.
Hazel, yes.
Tree.
Yes. This is the kind of tree that it is. It's one that has
It looks like a ghost.
it's a really big tree and the branches usually
Are very long.
yeah, they're very long and they fall. That's why in the story the tree could give her a dress. And there's also another word which is, well, it's not that hard to know what it is, but I didn't know what it was. And it's turtle doves.
It's on the second page.
Yes, it's on the second page. Do you have an idea of what a turtle dove is? Based on the sentence which it's used.
No, like the thing that like turtles have.
It's an animal.
Yes, it's an animal. Yeah, I imagine it was something related with the turtle. But no, it's just a little bird.
Oh,
strange
It's
name.
a type of,
It's a type of bird.
bird.
Okay, so next we're going to write a letter. You're welcome. This activity is going to be called writing to the author. I think that the story that I read to you is kind of different from the Disney version we already know, isn't it?
Yes.
So what we're going to do is we're going to create something which you didn't like from the story I read to you, or something that could have happened differently in the story. For example, I would tell the author to change the part in which the two stepsisters cut off their parts of their feet. I think that's a little too much. So you each have to write 2 things that you will change from the story. And you have 7 minutes. Please.
2 things.
2 things. Green. Green brothers. Green. Those are the authors of the story. Yes. Yes, it has to be in the format of a letter.